Welcome back to the new SEC podcast. The college football playoff is heading to Oxford. Ole Miss is playing Tulane in a rematch in the first round of the college football playoff to advance to the second round. Big game right here. Don't overlook it. Don't look past it. You got Georgia next if you win, if you're Ole Miss or Tulane. But this is a rematch. We mentioned it in another one of our videos we did. There's been 7 rematches on the year. 5 of them have gone the other way in the second matchup. Not that that means anything for Ole Miss, but as we look here at this rematch, Retzlaff versus Chambliss, away from all the news around Ole Miss and the hype there, what are we thinking here for this game?
Well, I'll tell you what, on this channel, we talk ball, we watch ball. So when I'm looking at this game and I'm thinking about football, the last game was 45-10. Trinidad Chambliss, second ever start, 17 for 27, 112 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns, 307 passing yards. The name of the game was explosive plays. 307 passing yards off 17 completions. Yeah. Tulane couldn't stop a fly from entering their house. It's just brutal.
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple things I highlighted from that game as being the 3 things that led Ole Miss to that point. And 2 of them have to do with those explosive plays like you're talking about. And it was, Chambliss's design runs were unstoppable. 112 yards on 14 carries. We could talk a little bit about that one. One of the things you mentioned on, the passing yards here is Ole Miss really dominated one-to-one matchups the entire game, whether that was catching in traffic or it was finding that separation. They dominated one-to-one matchups. The final key here I had from that game was that the defensive pressure that Ole Miss was able to get forced a lot of errant throws. They got pressure on 48% of dropbacks, 34% completion percentage for the 2 quarterbacks at Tulane. If any of that translates to this game, it could be another long day for Tulane.
Yeah. And one of the points that I had similarly was around kind of the pressure, right? So Ole Miss didn't have any sacks in the game, but 9 pressures. Jake Retzlaff in this game, 5 for 17, highest drop ball percentage for passes that were on target. So 2 drop passes, I think 28% according to PFF. But the drop passes, the lack of actual passing at all, a garbage time touchdown in the 4th quarter, and the fact that he couldn't handle pressure, not sacks. Pressure is what is a very concerning point in this game when I think about Tulane.
Yeah, and both quarterbacks who played had the same issue where they would, in the face of pressure, they couldn't get anything going. And now there's a little bit of a difference, in this game, where one of the issues for Tulane in the first one was running the ball. We've seen, Arnold Barnes was the runner there. They've moved a little bit more towards the Javin Gordon, Jamari McClure. We saw McClure have a great game against North Texas. That running comes back in a little bit. You pair that with Retzlaff as a runner. They may be more comfortable here than they were in week 4. So when you're getting that pressure, you don't want to flush the guy out to scramble. You don't want to take your eyes off of the running back for potential play action plays. So there is a little bit of an improvement from Tulane to give them some credit as the season on from a offensive standpoint in that regard.
Definitely. Like you said, McClure is kind of taking a little bit of the pressure off of Retzlaff when it comes to running the football. Retzlaff's still their leading rusher at 610 rushing yards, but McClure, kind of right behind him and will be a critical piece in this game. A lot of times we talk about the matchup of what's going on in the trenches. And I think you kind of touched on it in terms of the 7-on-7, the secondary. It's not even that Ole Miss is super dominant from a DB perspective, but the Tulane receivers haven't necessarily had to do a lot this season to win games. Their leading receivers got 4 touchdowns with Shaz Preston. It's not a lot, right? And you got Anthony Brown-Stevens with 2 touchdowns. You got Bryce Bohannon with 2 touchdowns. They're going against an offense like Ole Miss that's proven they can score. It's going to take more than just running the football and controlling time and possession and these long-winded drives to win a game like this. And I just haven't seen it from Tulane this point this season. Maybe they necessarily haven't had to be that type of team.
I mean, that's a key part of it, especially looking at the first game, is that, Tulane was able to move the ball a little bit. Like the yard statistics didn't show it, but they were converting 3rd downs. They were getting into positions to have good drives. 0 for 3 on 4th down. The drives would just fizzle out. They'd go for it and not get it.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do when playing a team that I think out-talents you to be able to put long extended drives together. You see when there's a program playing, especially as double-digit underdogs where your scoring comes a little bit more on broken plays. less on long converted drives. And while, there's been some opportunities to run on Ole Miss, we did a video that's going up about, what Ole Miss maybe needs to improve on to win the national title. One of the things I mentioned was run defense. But as long as you're not breaking, as long as you're just bending a little bit, then you're fine here, because it'll be hard for Tulane to be extended in their drives.
Yeah, we talked about in that video, right? Right now, Ole Miss giving up 150.5 rushing yards per game. That's 14th in the SEC, significantly lower in the country. I think it's 77th in the country compared to Tulane's about 26th in the country. There's been a lot of talk about G5 versus P4, and so the stats when you compare them is relative to the competition level. So like Tulane has a pretty decent rush defense. Didn't see that against Kawan Lacey. He had 2 touchdowns in the past, the more recent matchup, and you didn't see that against, of course, with Trinidad Chambliss. It's because it's a rematch and you have film. I call it a John Summerall kind of audition for his upcoming SEC role. I expect this Tulane team to play a little bit fired up. I don't expect it to be a 45-10 type game. I do have a hard time just when I look at it, like they don't win at any position. The quarterback position is not better. The running back position is not better. The receivers aren't better. Like we've seen in the past where, at least with Boise, they had the running back spot, right? The quarterback was somewhat competitive against the Penn State quarterback with Madsen at the time. I just don't really see it, even with the 22nd rated PFF quarterback with Jake Retzlaff.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's a tough team to match up with one-on-one because of the myriad of weapons that they have. We haven't mentioned them yet here, but so many guys on Ole Miss's team get involved in the pass game. You have to match up all these guys, and that was a huge dominant factor in the first game was those one-on-one matchups. Daquan Wright up the seam. The linebackers were getting, their play recognition wasn't phenomenal. They were keeping their eyes on Chambliss. They were scared about him running. So they were letting Wright run up the seam. 3 catches for, I believe, over 70 yards because they were just leaving him be. And Deuce Alexander, who won nearly every one-on-one matchup up the field because he outskills a lot of these guys. You see that across the gambit of weapons that Ole Miss has where they have those opportunities. So as long as Ole Miss doesn't get, they're not looking ahead to Georgia, they're not getting caught flat-footed and things like that. If they can block out the noise and play their game, they got it. They're good.
Yeah, and I think what Tulane did well in the conference championship, because they played an explosive offense, right? They definitely kind of bottled up Mestamaker at the quarterback position for the first 3 quarters. North Texas started to kind of come back a little bit, but what they did well was force turnovers. And in a game where you're a heavy underdog like this, if their DBs can find themselves in positions to force turnovers, play a little bit of jam coverage, make them beat you on the ground, that's their best shot to win this game. And that's kind of what they did well against North Texas in that conference championship. A respectable G5 opponent in that matchup.
A great showing from them, and they were converting those into points. That was the biggest thing to stop an explosive offense like North Texas. If they can bring that in here, be opportunistic, take advantage of things like that. We've seen sometimes where Chambliss has been inaccurate with passes. It's often led to nothing. It hasn't led to turnovers, but if you can get something there, snag a pass, forcing Ole Miss to run the ball a little bit more, because while they are running, Kawan Lacey's doing a lot of things from a scoring perspective. They're not explosive that much running the ball. It's more of a slow drag where they're going to get 3 to 4 yards every single time and just continue to move the chains on you running the ball. Only one team in the playoff running more than Ole Miss. But I think that's a better game to play.
Yeah.
To try to get a stop than it is to try to outmatch the receivers one-to-one.
Yeah, you wear them down. You're right. You definitely wear them down. I think it controls the time of possession a lot better when you run the football like that. I'm so interested in this matchup and what Jake and this team can bring. Last year we saw in postseason play, they played Colorado, and Colorado was heavily favored. They absolutely dominated the Colorado team. You could argue the BYU team has more talent than Tulane last year and this year. The best teams that Retzlaff has played is SMU, who they beat last year. Best team they played this year, of course, Ole Miss. It was an absolutely dominating loss, right? It's going to require him to handle pressure. When they lost to UTSA, there's 11 pressures. He had a 50% completion percentage. Lost to Ole Miss, 29.4% completion percentage. If they want to win this game, got to run the football, got to be able to handle pressure, got to convert on third downs. And then for Ole Miss, they just got to play their game. They got to do the things that have gotten them to 11-1 to this point in the season, that have allowed them to have a lead against Georgia, who is now the conference champion. Run the football, play mistake-free football at Trinidad Chambliss, use your weapons, and I think it's a pretty easy win for them.
Get in, get out, one thing at a time. Don't look ahead. Take advantage of your opportunity here. Play your game. It'll be interesting to see here if Chambliss does have some more designed running plays called for him. We've seen that drop off the past few weeks where they haven't really needed it against Florida and Mississippi State. Only 8 designed runs in the last 2 weeks. Won't count the Citadel one because he didn't play that much. Prior to that, he was having about 8 per game. So we'll see what happens here. I think that that's a good skill to improve on for Georgia if you do win this game and go to the Sugar Bowl against them. Score here, Ole Miss 17.5-point favorites. I'm going to take them 34-13 winning this game and continuing on to the next round.
Yeah, I think our scores are pretty similar. I was going to say 35-14, so we're about the same there. I think 5 touchdowns. We see a couple from Kawan, we see a couple from Chambliss, maybe a defensive touchdown. I think there is a somewhat of a better showing in the first half with Tulane. Last game they had a garbage touchdown and the field goal, but they're just outmatched in this game, and we'll see. Well, after that, I think the lack of designed runs kind of comes from the wear and tear of playing an SEC schedule. Like, you're not playing at Ferris State anymore, and you got to protect your assets, to me. So could see more of that, but yeah. I think you play and you use him as much as you need to use Chambliss, and get out, make sure everyone's healthy, and ideally, if you win, you advance to the next round, of course.
Absolutely. Well, Ole Miss fans watching, we just put a video out. If you haven't seen it yet, talking about what Ole Miss needs to do to not only win this game, but what their path looks like to win it all. So be sure to watch that one when you're done here. Tulane fans, appreciate you tuning in. Big game for both programs. First round of the playoffs. We'll see what happens here. Drop your score predictions in the comments. I'm Hunter Ziesman, joined here by Randall Ledet Jr. Love talking football, especially in the playoffs. And until next time.